I'm going to do a series on nutrition experts that really helped to inspire me. And Adelle Davis was the first popular nutrition expert to really start publishing for the popular, for popular consumption for the everyday person to read and understand nutrition. She was a very brilliant person. She was the first scientist with a degree in biochemistry that I'm aware of that began publishing books for the average consumer. Her books were published right after World War II, and they were really helpful to a lot of people. She's inspired the greats. She's inspired like Dr. Robert C. Atkins, the creator of the Atkins diet. She's inspired Dr. Nicholas Perricone, the writer of many books on nutrition, on anti-aging, and on skin and neurological health, as well as weight loss. She's inspired Linus Pauling, the two-time Nobel Prize winner. There's a video I'll leave in the description that's a review of a book on how to increase your intelligence, which is a scientifically proven method to increase your intelligence, written by a psychologist named Dr. Win Wenger. So Adelle Davis was born on the 25th of February, 1904, and died May 31st, 1974. Okay, she later dropped the name. Okay. After graduating Lyceum High School, Davis studied economics at Purdue University, then transferred to the University of California, Berkeley, receiving a BA in household science. She obtained further training in dietetics at New York's Bellevue and Fordham hospitals, then supervised nutrition in the Yonkers, New York public schools, and served as nutritionist for New York obstetricians. Davis returned to California in 1931, launching a private consulting practice in nutrition, which continued until 1958 for 2 years in Oakland, thereafter in Los Angeles. In 1939, she received a Master of Science in Biochemistry from the University of Southern California. From 1948 on, she made her home in Palos Verdes Estates near Los Angeles. Davis married Adelle. Davis's first publication was a 1932 promotional pamphlet for milk. Now, what I want to make sure people understand, before I continue, I want people to understand I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutrition expert, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, not a DO, not an MD, not a nurse practitioner, not an RN, nothing like that. So don't take health advice from me. Don't take health advice from people on YouTube. If you're going to get health advice, if you have a reason to seek health advice, seek it from a licensed healthcare practitioner, not people on YouTube. Okay, so these are her books that she wrote: Optimum Health, You Can Stay Well, Vitality Through Planned Nutrition. Davis's public acclaim, however, rested on 4 books: Let's Cook It Right, Let's Have Healthy Children, Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit, and Let's Get Well. The four Let's books and their revisions sold 10 million copies, mostly in paperback, during Davis's lifetime, and made her, as Time put it in 1972, the high priestess of a new nutrition religion. Davis began to travel, and that's the thing. This woman is responsible for the whole food movement, not whole food plant-based. Okay, there were people like Paul Bragg that promoted the Adventist type lifestyle, but this woman promoted the whole food diet, whole meats, whole dairy, whole grains, whole legumes, whole foods for everyday people, and promoted supplementation before it was popular. Okay, in her heyday as a food guru, the matronly Davis conveyed a feisty, down-to-earth blah blah blah. Okay, Davis benefited from and contributed to phenomenal growth from the 50s onward of the health food movement. And that's important to understand. She essentially was one of the big promoters of that movement, along with people like Paul Bragg, Jack LaLanne, and other similar people. I wanted to go over some of her quotes just to show how influential she is and how accurate a lot of her information is. Okay, to say that obesity is caused by merely consuming too many calories is like saying that the only cause of the American Revolution was the Boston Tea Party. Keep in mind, we now know of hormonal factors that play a role in obesity, such as insulin resistance and things of that nature. At her time, it was only calories in, calories out, calories in, calories out. That's what was pushed. Okay, if this country is to survive, the best-fed nation myth had better be recognized for what it is: propaganda designed to produce wealth but not health. Now, there is the CIA and declassified things pointed out that while both Americans and Soviet citizens ate more than they needed, okay, and probably promoted obesity in both the USSR and the USA, the Soviets actually followed a healthier diet than the United States. Thousands, and I'm going to show that, thousands upon thousands of persons have studied disease. Almost no one has studied health. Okay, I think the last time I heard somebody promote the study of health was Walter Longo with the concept of juventology as opposed to gerontology, meaning studying how to stay youthful, vibrant, and healthy. Since we spend approximately 1,000 hours a year eating our meals, they should be pleasant hours. That's the importance of having meals that are enjoyable to eat. Eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. As I see it, every day you do one of two things: build health or produce disease. That's a very important thing to understand. Every day you make a choice by what you put in your body and what you choose to do, what activities you choose to do. Are you going to build health or are you going to produce disease? Nutrition has been kicked around like a puppy that cannot take care of itself. Food faddists and crackpots have kicked it pretty cruelly. We are indeed much more than what we eat. Okay, keep this in mind. We are indeed much more than what we eat. But what we eat can nevertheless help us be much more than we are. Okay, it's important to understand this. So, what did Adelle Davis write? Well, the Let's series. Let's eat right to keep fit. Let's get well. Let's have healthy children. Let's cook it right. Let's stay healthy. You can get well. The closest person I know of that I would consider like Adelle Davis in modern times is Gene Carper, who I will also be doing a video on. As I've said, Adelle Davis really needs to be thought of as the mother of modern nutrition. Okay, people need to understand that. In the early 70s, someone introduced this person. Her name is, or maybe it's not, Simi Summer, PhD. Somebody introduced her to Whole Foods with Adelle Davis's cookbook. Okay, Adele's work was first published shortly after World War II. Her mission was to educate and inform her readers about the scientific basis of nutrition education. Okay, that's what people need to understand. This generation does not understand that you can plan things scientifically. Your nutrition, your fitness, your health. There's no need to be fat. Okay, there's no need for that. Many of the principles she emphasized are timeless pillars of good health. She strongly encouraged adequate consumption of the B-complex vitamins and the importance of including whole grain breads, cereals, rice bran, and wheat germ in the diet. She asserted that the only way to obtain all of the vitamins in the B-complex group is to source them from natural foods. This is still true, actually, because there's like choline and biotin and a couple other ones that are not really in any of the B-complex vitamins. Or if they are, there's not much of them. Her first book, Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit, devotes one chapter to each of the most essential vitamins and minerals, explaining how these elements work in the body, the daily requirements, symptoms of deficiency, as well as sources of each vitamin and mineral. She may have been the first to point out the harmful elements in the typical diet known to be excessively high in refined sugars, fats, and salt. She's also one of the first people to point out the dangers of hydrogenated fats. Also, to add to that, I would say refined flour. She also talked about refined flour in great length and why that's bad, to take all of the nutrients out of flour, which make you healthy. People might be asking, if Adelle Davis is so smart, why did she only live till 70? Well, you have to understand, at the time she was born, 1904, 70 was quite a time to live, quite a long time to live. But what you need to understand, okay, so Daisy Adelle Davis, born February of 1904, championed the belief that processed food is detrimental to our health. That's a very true statement. Nobody listened to her. More than half of the American diet is currently made up of ultra-processed foods. Her nutritional ideas, such as being 100% whole grain breads and cereals, in addition to eating liver at least once per week, appeared in multiple books from the 1950s through the 1970s. She also advocated for the proper balance between potassium and sodium. Keep that in mind. And she urged people to consume large quantities of choline. In 1974, at the age of 70, Davis died from multiple myeloma, an incurable form of blood cancer. And a lot of smart asses will be like, well, she drank a lot of milk, blah, blah, blah. We know things about nutrition now that we didn't know then, but the reason we explore nutrition is because of pioneers like Adelle Davis. That's why we explore nutrition. That's why we explore these things, is because of people like Adelle Davis. And, we know things now better than we knew then because of people like her. But the thing is, a lot of what she stated is still accurate. People need to understand, too, like the USDA diet, what makes the USDA diet unhealthy is not the fact that there's grains in it. Okay? What makes the USDA diet unhealthy, and it's not an unhealthy diet. The USDA diet is actually exceptionally healthy. It's very similar to the Mediterranean diet, which is one of the healthiest diets, if not the healthiest diet. But what you have to understand about the USDA diet is it allows for the consumption of ultra-processed foods, and it shouldn't. If it didn't allow for the consumption of processed and ultra-processed foods, it would be healthy. If it was only whole grains, only whole dairy, only whole meat products, only whole foods, it would not be as detrimental to the health. It wouldn't be detrimental to the health. In fact, it would build health. And that's the thing, is, but people, where everybody can start with nutrition, of course, is to actually look at the USDA diet and follow it, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Again, don't take medical advice from me. I'm not a nutritionist, not a dietitian, not a doctor, not a nurse, not an RN, not a nurse practitioner, not a chiropractor, not any of that. Now, I know I've already included this video in another one of my videos, but I think it's very important that people hear what Mrs. Davis actually said and understand what she was promoting, which is a whole food diet to build health.
Adelle, how did you first become interested in nutrition?
Actually, I came indirectly because I lived on an Indiana farm as a kid. And from the time I was 10 until 18, I was very, very active in 4-H clubs. And as a result of this 4-H club work, we had a lot of roundups at Purdue University. And so I got very fond. All my sisters had gone to Indiana University, and the only thing they taught at Purdue was home economics. So I started out at home economics. Then
now you have to remember, at that time, education was very limited for women. Women were not thought to need an education.
I went on and got my hospital training in New York City as a dietitian, and I was very disillusioned by that because I was all full of idealism and how we could make people healthy with good nutrition, and the diets were just horrible. We fed people on 19 cents a day.
Keep in mind, hospital diets are still not very good for people. They're very bad. They contain a lot of saturated fat, a lot of cholesterol, a lot of unhealthy refined foods. They literally are junk food diets served to people, cardiac patients, and everything else in hospitals. It's very, very sad state, the hospital nutrition at the average hospital.
They got a gun in their hands. They could have shot us, I'm sure. But we didn't see the people. And so I didn't like that. I liked people too much.
Adele, I would say that nutrition is taken pretty much for granted in America. Why?
I'm not sure nutrition's taken for granted. The uninformed person will think that if they're not hungry, they're well nourished. I think that's perhaps what you mean. Unfortunately, that isn't true. We have just an appalling amount of sickness in America now. We have millions of people have heart disease, millions have arthritis, 22 million have allergies, and there's so many millions of people with diseases. They've either got bad eyes, or we've got brain damage, or we have...
Now, and I also want to point this out. People like Adelle Davis, like, for example, my cardiologist recommends that I take 800 milligrams of magnesium to help my heart. So I have to take 800 milligrams of magnesium citrate every day. That was started by people like Adelle Davis. Okay, that's who encouraged the medical practice of medical nutrition, and it's still, or of integrated medicine in ways. Now, of course, integrated medicine was practiced before her by people like John Harvey Kellogg, but what you need to understand is she was the first popular mainstream author promoting these things.
Mentally defective, so that they're in hospitals. There's a tremendous number of people in hospital beds, even though they're putting people out on tranquilizers in hospital beds because of mental illness, which is turning out more and more and more to be a nutritional thing.
And I would like to say, I actually agree with her. A lot of my mental health symptoms were highly exasperated during the 4 years of homelessness and severe malnutrition that I had. I was only eating maybe once or twice a week sometimes. And at that, it was not very good food. It was things like pepperoni and crackers and whatever I can get my hands on. It was not very healthy food at all. And I'll continue with the video now. But I very much believe that, of course, which is the reason I promote orthomolecular psychiatry and promote orthomolecular medicine and orthomolecular nutrition, is I truly do think that, this type of thing is very true, that nutrition poor nutrition equates to poor mental health. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. People like Dr. Abram Hoffer, Dr. Linus Pauling, and also keep in mind, Adelle Davis inspired Dr. Linus Pauling, the two-time Nobel Prize winner. She inspired him. Think about that.
How much of that sickness would you say is nutritional?
I think that a very great deal of sickness is because of the...
Now, keep in mind, a lot of mental illness is nutritional. In fact, B12 deficiency can result in irreversible brain damage, as can deficiency in other nutrients, particularly if it's an in utero situation where the mother's not getting enough of the nutrients.
Refined foods, I think we're literally at the mercy of the unethical food, refined food people, the people who take all the minerals and vitamins out of the sugar, out of the flour, make hydrogenated fats rather than leave the natural good fats.
Our pediatrician...
Notice, like I said, she's pointing out the dangers of hydrogenated fats. And also notice what she said about taking the nutrients out of the sugar and the flour. People might not know that things like wheat germ, oat bran, wheat bran, these things are essentially, they were part of the whole wheat product, or the whole grain product that have been removed. This is where all the nutrients are in these things. The other thing is blackstrap molasses, which is the byproduct of sugar making, of the manufacture of white cane sugar, is so high in nutrients that it can actually be used as a dietary iron supplement. It's that high in iron.
And obstetricians trained in nutrition?
Some of the medical schools are beginning to give some work in nutrition, but none of it's adequate. Most of them have, but the tragedy is that they have such terrific power over the girls and over the women and the babies. For instance, I have yet to know a baby, unless it's nursed, who's on a good diet. I have never known a formula to be adequate.
Keep in mind, a lot of formulas, a lot of baby formulas, even to this day, are essentially corn syrup. And also keep in mind, Dr. Joel Wallach had to take baby formula manufacturers to court to have them put certain micronutrients in the formulas in order to protect children from disease.
You've written another book on disease and health, Let's Get Well.
Yes.
Can you really avoid disease through good nutrition?
Some you can and some you can't. A great deal of, there's been much interesting work in the past in which native races who had no refined foods whatsoever have been investigated, and they found that there was tremendously good health.
Native races that have had no refined food. This was dealt with in the study of the Zulus, where Zulus that were given a refined British diet did very poorly. Zulus that were on the indigenous Zulu diet did very well. And of course, the work of Dr. Weston Price showed that indigenous people did very well with health compared to people that ate refined food diets. And that's still being explored today with the hunter-gatherer groups and things of that nature.
There was no heart disease, no cancer, no diabetes, no gallbladder disease, no mental disease, no crime, no drugs, no alcoholism, and so on. And apparently, if our food were good, but our nutrients needed to build good health are being thrown away.
Why do you feel that most of the American public doesn't eat that way?
Because we've heard years and years and years of propaganda. We've been told that certain cereals build champions when it did not. You feed it to rats and they die. Any of the cold cereals.
Take note of what she's talking about here. If you feed refined foods to animals, to laboratory animals, they will die.
Been told that white bread builds strong bodies so many ways. Dr. Roger Williams took 10 or 12 different types of white bread, all so-called enriched, and fed it to rats. They all died in about 6 weeks, or almost all of them died.
One of the problems is the enrichment with certain nutrients, such as thiamine. It doesn't make up for the fact that the refined flour takes nutrients to digest. That's one of the biggest problems with the enrichment of flour products, is it's not enough enrichment to make up for what's taken out, and it's not enrichment with everything that is taken out. It's not enrichment with the minerals. It's not enrichment with the other vitamins, like vitamin E and things like that. So you have to understand, they are taking out more than they're putting in.
And he brought out that that time was when prisoners would be kept on bread and they thrived.
Adele, what's your recommendation?
Take note of that. Prisoners kept on bread thrived at one time. Why is that? Because the food was higher in protein, higher in fiber, and higher in the vital nutrients needed to support the human organism.
For adult consumption of milk.
Well, I think adults would be much healthier if they...
Now, milk might not be the greatest food. We know that now. However, milk does have a great many health benefits, including high protein. It's high in calcium. If it's fortified, it has vitamin D and vitamin A. So let's hear what she has to say.
A whole quart of milk a day. For instance, there's something like 6 million women with aching backs because their bones have been...
Now, notice she said a whole quart of milk a day. Now, this is at a time, around this area, bodybuilders would drink a gallon of milk a day. Many of the longer-lived bodybuilders, I might add, drank about a gallon of milk a day. Okay, a gallon of milk per day as part of the Golden Era bodybuilding program.
Mineralized. Milk is one of your best sources of protein. I like to recommend at least a quart of milk a day to everybody. And it's the only good source of calcium. It's an excellent source of B2, which is an extremely important vitamin, I think.
But we've been told that milk is also a source of cholesterol, which is supposed...
There are other issues with milk, such as bovine leukemia virus, the fact that it aggravates the immune system, things of that nature. So you do have to keep that in mind. Milk is not great for you. However, for people that follow an omnivorous diet, milk is not the worst for you either. It has nutrients. You have to agree that milk does contain nutrients. Animal food does provide nutrients. Although it might not be a high animal product diet, might not be as nutrient dense as a whole food vegan diet, but it does indeed provide nutrients. You have to keep that in mind. It might not also be, this is the other thing, a whole food vegan diet is also a little bit more nutritionally balanced in the sense that it's not going to overload you on certain vitamins and such either, although you do have to supplement with a couple.
Dangerous to the health.
Well, the cholesterol problem is there's a lot of misinformation on that, of course. and by physicians, again, because I haven't been trained in nutrition. Cholesterol is high only when the foods are so refined that we haven't the nutrients to utilize it well.
Are there any
That is true to an extent. When you consume white flour, white sugar, it raises the triglycerides, it raises the cholesterol, especially if you're consuming it with cholesterol. So that is true to an extent, although we do know more now, and probably you shouldn't be eating too much cholesterol.
general rules that you can throw out to the public for keeping themselves healthy with good nutrition?
Yes, I gave that in quite a bit of detail a while ago. Just natural foods. Whole grain bread, cereals, fruits, vegetables, milk, cheese, eggs.
So what were her recommendations?
With good nutrition? Yes, I gave that in quite a bit of detail a while ago. Just natural foods. Whole grain bread, cereals, fruits, vegetables, milk, cheese, eggs.
It's that simple.
Yeah, it's that
Just whole foods.
simple. There's nothing refined if you really want to build health.
Nothing refined if you want to build health. And that's all for this video.